Welcome to the Week in Italian Startup, where we discuss the latest highlights happening in the Italian tech and investment ecosystem. Welcome back, everyone, to the Week in Italian Startup. How are you, Nick?
I'm great. How are you, Jack?
Very good, thanks. All right, so what is happening in the past 2 weeks? What has happened? So these weeks are Italy versus big tech. So let's go through some of the major points that have happened. Seems like Italy has been like waking up and sort of wanted to having a say on a bunch of different issues, and for some reason everything is happening in the same days. So it's pretty fascinating to see Italy moving on different elements. So let's start with the ban. So that you actually mentioned last week. So the Italian
ban with the capital
B. The ban, exactly. I have my thumbnail for YouTube ready in my mind. It's like ban. That's it, and that's all. Awesome. So the Italian Garante della Privacy asked OpenAI to limit its ChatGPT service in Italy, allegedly for misusing the personal data of Italian people. And for allowing us access to the service to kids younger than 13-year-old. The Garante asked the corrective action and threatened a 20 million euro fine if the company does not comply. So this is huge. Just to give a little bit of context, and then I'm very curious what you think so far, Nick. Let's give some context, and then let's give some latest development to the listener. So so basically in Italy, the Garante della Privacy is just to give a little bit of background. Is a group of 4 members elected by the parliament, and they stay in charge every 7 years. And they're basically in charge of making sure that the Italian data protection laws are enforced whenever personal data from Italian resident is used or stored by companies. And it would sound like sort of another office from the Italian government. Actually, that's very important on different levels. Also because they're the one in charge of protecting minors from basically misuse internet content, which is age sensitive. So it's pretty essential for a nice and proper use of the web. So that's one of the points that I wanted to make. Another element that I thought it was interesting was that essentially, in order for data protection, Italy has 2 levels, which is the Italian level and the European level. So before in 2018, when the GDPR came out from the European Union, so the General Data Protection Regulation, Italy had its own code called the Personal Data Protection Code. And basically, they've been working to update in a way that both run parallel. It still stands, though, that whenever Italian citizen data are used or manipulated, they need to both comply to the 2 regulations. So it's kind of a double street over there. So the ban comes mostly from the misuse, the allegedly misuse of data, of personal data within the training data of the platform, of course OpenAI, but also about the fact that access was granted to people below 13 years of age. So again, there are a few elements there. So that's a little bit of context.
Yeah. Thank you, Jack. It was pretty excellent, and things moved fast after that. So this is from a couple of weeks ago. The Data Protection Authority sort of asked OpenAI to clarify and take action about those concerns. The response by OpenAI was basically to cut off Italy from ChatGPT. So you've got concerns, then you can't use it. So basically that was the answer. And Sam Altman himself tweeted about cutting off Italy. Then things moved forward. And the company and the executives from OpenAI actually set up a meeting with the Italian Data Protection Authority last week. So they met, and it seems that they assured the authority that they would take action in order to improve their use of data, their compliance, and so on and so forth. I have to say that after the move by the authority, they started publishing some posts, some comments about the fair use and the attentive use of data while training and creating OpenAI GPT. Those curious, right? So I mean, they started trying to appear more transparent. And the other things that I have to say is that other authorities started observing what the Italians made, and it seems it might move and might have something to say to OpenAI as well. So I mean, as long as only Italy is moving, I mean, it's only Italy. But if other major countries start, pointing the finger, that might mean something. And I think it's not too bad. I agree.
Yeah, the other element which is interesting, and especially this happened literally like after a week from the ban, is that other data privacy authorities across the border, so France, Canada, started having complaints about how basically ChatGPT would produce false data or reveal personal data. So we are seeing these elements. So the big question is whether, first of all, people, of course, need to aware that the data inputted will be used in the model. So that's the first barrier. But then you have the concern on, how far do we want to train this model with data which can be actually bound by privacy laws. So that's a very interesting element. And it's gonna be very interesting to see who's gonna start sort of operating. The good thing is that OpenAI has been extremely open about actually collaborating with the different authorities. So the stop, I think, was mostly to sort of avoid any worsening of the condition. But in general, I'm sure that they're gonna make sure that everything will restart as soon as possible. So it's been pretty much more than a week. As today, on April 11th, the ChatGPT site is still blocked through official channels. Let's say that, because there are ways around it, of course. But we're not endorsing any of those, of course. But yeah, the thing is, my only concern, and that what was basically pointed out by some people, is that is this ban blocking born like an ecosystem which is like starting in Italy? So as thousands of API application apps are coming out from across the world, Italian founders have this other like weight that are pulling them down compared to like other founders. So this thing is moving extremely quick. So the big concern was that, okay, is that slowing down an ecosystem?
Yeah, that's a very fair question, and I agree with you. I have to add that the OpenAI only shut down access to ChatGPT tool. Whole API is actually still accessible and can be used without any shortcut, let's say so, from Italy. And this basically means that they are kind of, just covering a little bit of the surface and being very, that's a mediatic move, if you want, not a substantial move if you wanted to really cut off Italy because of potential problems you would have cut off the entire catalog of services. And the other thing that I want to add is that a lot of entrepreneurs, managers, and many people actually started voicing out their concern about cutting out Italy from this technology. And a few days ago, they opened a petition on change.org to ask for OpenAI to give give back access to ChatGPT to Italians, and to start for the authorities to start working on a more modern AI law and regulation. And I have to say, if the result is to accelerate by a lot the research on the legal side and the correct way to treat data and personal information and so forth, if the result is to accelerate a lot this process, then it is good that the authority made that move, that OpenAI, made that type of second move, cutting off ChatGPT, because this made all of it very public. And hopefully this will have positive effects going forward, I believe. I'm optimist because of this, because of the opportunity to accelerate and really put a lot of brains over how to think about having this technology being safe and without misusing important or private information. So I think this will be. I hope this will have positive results.
Awesome, Nick. No, I completely agree. I think it's an important issue and need to be addressed, and I'm sure it's going to be solved relatively quickly. All right, moving on. So on the banning spree of Italy, let's talk about synthetic food. So the Italian government is proposing new legislation to ban the production and distribution of lab-grown food in Italy. So last week, essentially, the premier signed the acceptance of this new regulation that would not allow any company in Italy to manufacture and even resell lab-grown meat. And the argument is really to protect everything that is first of all, the agricultural ecosystem in Italy. The farming ecosystem in Italy, and the fact that Italy is one of the, of course, Italy relies a lot on agriculture and farming, especially for luxury, let's say premium production in general of luxury foods. And this is of course, one of the big selling point of the Italian economy, I would say. So, and here we can open up the discussion both from the sort of macroeconomic standpoint and the ethical sustainability argument that all the lab-grown meat have been doing, because, FDA is kind of close to legalize in a way lab-grown meat, so we're getting there. I believe honestly that the sustainability argument is pretty strong and cannot be ignored. Politically though, and I don't want to start talking politics here, but it kind of makes sense for Italy to say that if there is one nation that should have done that, probably is Italy. So let's see how it unfolds.
Yeah, I agree, but I have to say, I'm more a fan of the GPT drama. So I prefer that one because I think it will have positive implications going forward. I can't see any real positive implication going forward. One, we are banning synthetic food. Lab-grown food. Is lab-grown food synthetic? What do you mean by
Great
synthetic?
point.
So they're regular seminal cells, right? So they're not synthetic, meaning they are created by some kind of synthesis. They're just grown in the lab. So, one. Second, as I said in the newsletter, I'm no expert about European regulation, but I believe that in terms of food distribution, Europe wins over local regulation. So if a producer gets a license to sell lab-grown meat in Europe, you can't ban it from Italy. So what you're doing is basically shooting in your own food, by not having an industry in Italy being able to sell or develop or research onto anything but lab-grown meat, and having giving foreigners the possibility to sell and distribute it into this country. So I mean, this is a weird move, and I'm not sure I see the political, other than the local political implication. I don't see the move on the global scale. I mean,
yeah,
you raise your hand, you say, hey, your country social sells synthetic food in Italy, and the world we say, and so what? Excellent, great, yeah, stay there.
Who cares?
So, who cares? So there is no, I can't see any cross-border implication about it, right? So this, I don't know. So this move is not great. Let me tell you this. It doesn't look like it is a great move. And I think it's also strategically wrong, because we are basically stopping an entire industry potentially to thrive and grow in this country. About the competition with our own traditional food, I agree, but I mean we're not talking about substituting a product. We are talking about removing choice. So
I think
we should be in an economy that gives customers choice within the boundaries of safety and correct competition. But
yeah, I think that's the biggest point. I completely agree. It's that kind of ban sounds political and paternalistic. I'm pushing myself to say, and the question is, people should think like, is limited choice the right choice for a government? So again, we're not here to talk politics, but hey, you touch tech, we need to talk about that.
Yeah. So the economics implication of this can be huge. Huge in a negative sense for Italy, at least.
I agree. Wow. Okay. Let's talk about the third big dispute. So Italy versus Meta in the SIAE dispute. So a few weeks ago, Meta removed all Italian music due to a dispute over licensing with SIAE. SIAE is the authority that regulates right for artists and collection of anything which is basically fees due to copyright. More recently, an Italian antitrust agency opened an investigation against Meta, but people that were represented not by SIAE but by Soundreef, digital right platform, which is an alternative to SIAE, partially restored access to a portion of its catalog to Meta users. So there is a little bit of drama there. Let's maybe dig a little bit there. So my understanding is that SIAE had a deal with Meta for years, and basically it stopped by the end of 2022. So it was right now basically was kind of the negotiation phase where SIAE should have renewed or renegotiated the deal with Meta. Now, Meta being Meta and being sort of a giant, kind of as a good negotiator, imposed their own condition. My understanding is as a lump sum of money. So instead of actually going into the details and granularly revealing data first of all to SIAE so they can actually make their own judgment, Meta, as in the past did, offered a lump sum of money to SIAE so that actually there can be like a proper distribution of profits for the rights in music. SIAE didn't agree. And there we are. So we're essentially there where music has been removed. It was good that some artists were with Soundreef, but the problem here was that a few of the songs of some artists were both under SIAE and Soundreef license. So if it was 100% Soundreef, then the music would have been restored. If it was both, then that's not the case because they would need approval from both parties. So, we cannot listen our favorite Italian songs on Instagram and Facebook as we scroll mindlessly through social media, which is a loss for humanity.
So that's very bad. I believe there are Italian songs that are used consistently and constantly across the social platforms. I mean, Volare. Anyhow, you can't talk to a ChatGPT agent while you listen on an Instagram tune video while eating your lab-grown steak. You can't do that. You can't do any of it.
That's the society we're going. We cannot do much.
Why am I keeping my laptop still? So, I mean, just, throw it away.
No, exactly. I don't know, honestly. This one, how it's going to be solved, that's going to be interesting to see, because I mean,
well, now the antitrust authority moved against Meta and saying, "Hey, I mean, this is anti-competitive behavior. Is it? And whose rights is the SIAE defending here in this case? And who's Meta against? So who's working? So I mean." It's a complex situation because now public authorities are moving to look into the deal. So it can go on forever in a sense. It can be very complex. I believe eventually they will find a good balance, a good outcome. I don't know whether Meta will be pushed to publish fine data about the use of Italian music on the platform, because that would open a very, very, very dangerous first case. Think about the rest of the world. I believe the rest of the world is looking.
For sure.
Italy is probably a tiny bit of the digital music world in terms of value. I mean, I believe there are other local, national companies, rights managers that are looking at it very closely to see where it goes. So again, first the other problem is that, and I'm not a music right expert whatsoever, so please, if some expert is listening, please contact us so we can have an insightful conversation. But my feel is that SIAE has been sort of the hated authority for musicians, and the web has been a liberation, especially when it comes to making money from art directly to musician. So it's always been an intermediary with a weird position. In the past, it kind of made sense. So in a world pre-internet, that would protect arts. For and get people money for what they're due, but because listeners are always closer and closer to musicians, and it's always easier and easier to sort of essentially get as much visibility, revenue, and connection with the crowds, then SIAE is an intermediary that. I don't know. Well, it needs to upgrade for sure when it comes to the digital space, but at the same time, it's not the only option anymore. And new artists, are they really willing to follow the old ways of the music industry? And I'm telling that just because a lot of friends that have been playing music, they hate SIAE, and they always have. And again, from the startup perspective, that's a pain point that somebody will address. But yeah, it's definitely an issue. It's definitely an issue, and I don't know whether they will be able to actually update and upgrade their way of interfacing with the music industry. I agree with you. That's exactly my point. So, who the antitrust authority is moving against in this case? Because is SIAE protecting the rights of its artists? So, if I'm an artist on SIAE, I am basically cut off from a revenue stream from Meta at this moment, and I can switch. Where do I switch to? I'm probably bound by contracts that don't allow me to change provider of rights management for my music. So I mean, this is a very complex situation, I believe, and
I agree.
It's been so for years. So the fact, as you say, that a lot of musicians in Italy are fed up with SIAE. It's been like this for decades now.
I agree.
I mean, it's a very weird and complex situation, and
agree.
maybe we will enter into more modern world after this, but I don't know.
Awesome. So Nick, let's go through a quick sort of bullet point run up of the latest news in fundraise, starting from 2 weeks ago. Like one that I think is worth mentioning is Azimut investing 40 million euro in Alps Blockchain, operator in sustainable mining farms. They intervened essentially directly with a direct investment and also through a club deal. So this is interesting, first of all, because Azimut, as we always say, is one of the most sort of cutting-edge operator in the industry. So it's worth seeing and taking notes on what they're doing. And secondly, because despite the big winter in blockchain and related startup, Web3, etc., still people doing great work are there, and I think that the people in Alps Blockchain, they understand that. So essentially Alps Blockchain is building basically farming warehouses where basically the energy is used from sustainable sources. So they're really blending sustainability with mining in general. And I thought it was a very powerful angle to actually tackle two very interesting issues and combine them in a very productive way. So as we say many times, blockchain is definitely here to stay in some form or another, because of the technology we have to recognize is extremely powerful. It's still there, and it's evolving. It's evolving in a very positive direction in this case in particular.
Yep, I agree. This is a very interesting investment. Because of timing. I mean, crypto has been hammered in the last few months. Not blockchain technology per se, but crypto in general. But the valuations have been going south for months now. So it's a moment where markets are weak. And it is interesting seeing players such as Azimut investing in infrastructure right now. So that means something about their vision, about the expectations going forward. And I agree, this is a nice blending of cleanish investment and in betting on technology. It's a very nice move. I like it.
All right. One last news: visual content creation startup raising 1.25 million from CDP, L Venture, and Encelado Venture. So visual is essentially making sure and getting easy access to photographer and video makers, so people can actually book in a very smooth way photo shoots of all sorts, from real estate to product. Of course, with different application to websites, e-commerce, and so on and so forth. And that is interesting because the investors also in this case are extremely strategic. If we take a look at Encelado Ventures, this is cool because it's basically a vehicle that is investing in that. First of all, has been funded by a former executive of UX. That have a ton of experience in different fields, but really powerfully in the SaaS and e-commerce space, and they have been actually investing in the same space again to make like a strategic package, a strategic portfolio of companies that can actually operate across verticals which are really close to them. So. If we look in the portfolio, we can see a few investments like Mirta, for example, Rifo, Artnit. So, they're trying to build something with a theme. I can see a theme there.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm seeing many operators and former managers stepping up this kind of vehicles. So it's very good for the ecosystem because you don't only provide capital, you also provide competence and experience. So it's very good that we have these type of investors in Italy. They're very important for building and helping to build successful companies. So, excellent.
Yeah, it's a powerful structure. Equity, a lot of equity partners, great expertise, definitely a very interesting model that can bring all the companies, all the portfolio companies forward. So that's super cool. All right, Nick, thank you so much. And thank you so much for the run through. It's been an interesting week. It's been like super insightful, and I'll see you next week.
Ciao, Jack. Thank you very much. Ciao, ciao, everybody. See you in a week.